Hi guys, Don Rice here, and I just realized this morning that it's been I don't know, it's been like a month since I last posted a video update to the Corsair. So I guess time flies when you're having fun. Except that I haven't been having fun. I mean, I know on large projects like this, the motivation kind of ebbs and flows, but I've really been struggling with motivation. I've been working on the tails for the last few weeks. Obviously, I think we saw the stabs get mounted about a month ago or so, and I've since built the fin, and so this is it's all wood, and it's weird because you build it on the fuselage itself, and which is a little strange, especially since this is a fiberglass fuselage, and the fin, the base rib here, just glues to the top of the fiberglass fuselage, and then you build the rest of the fin up on top of it. So I was a little concerned because, I mean, occasionally bad things happen. Maybe you nose the plane over. I don't, of course, but some people do. And if that happens, then this fin could get whacked and knocked off. So one of the things I've done to try and strengthen this thing up is if we look in here, this rudder post is just a big 1/4 inch piece of balsa, but I've added some 1/4 inch wide by 3/32 carbon strips. Now these go down through the fuselage, and they go all the way down into the stab down here. So they sink into the leading edge of the stab, so they're epoxied there and epoxied here. So that'll give it some added strength. Also, you can see this hole right here. This is actually a 200 thousandths carbon tube, and I made square 1 inch square holes here in the side of the fin and inserted a 1 inch balsa block right up here for this carbon tube to go down through, and the balsa block, I carved that into the sheeting of the fin. So the block itself is fairly well, it's fairly robust because it's between the top rib, and it's got the sheeting, and it's all glassed, and this carbon tube goes down through it, and that tube then so the tube travels down in a forward direction like this, and right here there's another 1 inch balsa block that the tube travels through. It then goes through the fiberglass fuselage, and on the inside of the fuselage, this won't be easy to see. Get that out of the way, move, and okay, so alright, so way down inside there, this thing right here is a hardwood block that carbon tube sinks into, and it's just cut off flush with the hardwood block, and then this is high soled to the fiberglass fuselage. So all of that was done in order to shore up and strengthen the fin. Okay, so what else has been going on? I've got the elevators and their various pieces more or less ready to be finished. I need to add the strips that were used on the real one to hold the covering down. So they use these aluminum battens, if you will, that went over the rib on top of the covering, and then they screwed them down into the ribs, and then they placed pinking taped covering over the top of those battens. So I still need to do that. And so this is a trim tab, and on the other side, this is I can never remember the name of the website, but some guy in Switzerland who makes these beautiful little clevises. He also makes airfoiled wing, functional wing wires for classics and old-time type airplanes. Not cheap, but beautiful, beautiful work. And so this just goes in and it's sunk into some wood. I vacuum formed some shrouds, some hoods that go over the top of this. I don't have them immediately available. Anyway, so this goes on. Well, that's the wrong one. Yep, that's left. Let's try the right one. Okay, so that works like that. Awesome. Awesome possum. And then let's see if I can find the correct trim tab, boost tab. So the Corsair had trim tabs and it had boost tabs. So the trim tabs, you know, were attached to the little wheel inside the cockpit and allowed him to trim it for straight and level flight at various speeds. But the Corsair also had boost tabs in order to help the pilot deal with the forces of moving the elevator itself. And so that's what this little tab is for on the real one. And so this is another couple of those Swiss clevises, and let me see if I can bring this down a little bit. And so this is scale, just like the real one. This tab had a push rod that connected directly up to the trailing edge of the stabilizer itself. And so as the stabilizer would move down, this trim tab moves up, or boost tab moves up, which helps the pilot. It takes some of the forces off the pilot. And so it operates something like this. For those of you who have been watching for years, you will have seen me do the same thing with the ailerons. So those are essentially, they're ready for paint. So, yay. Alright, what else has been going on? Let's see. We built a rudder. Alright, so the rudder is almost ready for covering. And the hinge blocks are in, the hinges are in. They've been put in with Gorilla Glue, as you can see. And then this area here, there's a hinge that goes in there with Gorilla Glue, but underneath that hinge is a maple block. Actually, the maple block goes all the way from rib to rib. The hinge goes into the maple block, and that's sandwiched between two pieces of 1/8 inch plywood. And all of that is to make a robust mount for the torque rod. And so the torque rod has been set in, and so that it is exactly aligned with the hinge points of the 3 hinges. And I still have to, just got this done yesterday, so I still have to fill this little valley here. I'll fill that with some basswood in order to, and I'll wedge that in to hold it all in place, even though this is not likely to be going anywhere. So this is 3/16 inch piano wire. And the plan for this, if you look down there, you can see there's a big slot in the stabilizer. The purpose of that slot is to allow me to get the rudder. The rudder will drop into the aft part of that slot and allow the whole rudder to sink all the way down to a point where the hinges can actually see the holes that they're supposed to slide into. So the torque rod is in its slot. The hinges can see their holes, and at this point I can drive the whole thing forward into its home, which is right there. Alright, so that's just like that. There's still a little bit of, sanding to do. Like I said, this was yesterday. So that lives just like that. The rudder did not have a boost tab, but it did have a trim tab. So I have framed that up. I still need to finish the shaping and put the shrouds in place and get it mounted with a few dowels. But that's still to come. Okay, hold on. Okay, so looking at the bottom inside the tail wheel well, here you can see the torque rod for the rudder, and where it comes through the stab right here. This is that slot that had to be cut in order to let the torque rod come down, and then it moves forward into its final position, which is right here. So once I had that set in place and working, and everything looked okay, looks like I don't have any real wobble here, I decided I needed to make a bearing block to mount inside the stabilizer and glue to the stabilizer in order to solidify the positioning of the torque rod throughout its movement. And so I started playing around with the lathe, and made up a block here that'll sink down into the stabilizer, and then put it on the mill to take this angle cut. This is 14 degrees, which is what I measured the airfoil of the stabilizer to be at the point that this goes in. So the idea being this will go sink into the stabilizer like that. I didn't want the steel torque rod to be turning inside an aluminum bearing block because the aluminum there could be some galling at some point, and then my rudder could just lock up, and that would be bad. So I turned this out of nylon. So that's a slip fit hole in the middle for the 3/16 inch torque rod, and then this fits in there like that. It's countersunk into the thing, and the top of the nylon bearing is about 15 thousandths above the aluminum. And then I found this cool kind of, it's designed as a nose wheel steering arm, but this is a brass offset cam lock, and it's from these guys. They make all kinds of cool nose gears, mostly I think for sport flyers, but they're bulletproof and they're really, really clever. Very nice nose gear stuff. Anywho, so once you put that in place and you set the set screw here, and then this piece slides down and locks in place onto it. It snaps in place, so I haven't actually snapped it onto the cam lock because I'm afraid I'll never get it back off again. But once it snaps in place, then it's kind of locked. It can't rotate because it's all off center. Anyway, so I'll show you what that all looks like together. Bearing block slips on like that. It just kind of falls into place right there, and I'll be gluing that in someday. But really, I can't glue it in place until the rudder is glued in place, which can't happen until the whole damn thing is painted. So it could be a couple of years before I get that done. Anyway, that goes down in there. The nylon bearing slips in, no, really, it slips in just like that, and with all of this glued in place, now I've got a nice strong bearing block. The whole aluminum and nylon block together weigh 9 grams, so it looks robust, and it is, but there's not much weight going on here. And then we slip the cam lock in place, and that will ride on top of the nylon. Set screw obviously will file a flat into the torque rod, which will lock that in place, and then this will slip in and lock in place over the top of the cam lock, and then I can hook up my push rod over here. Push rod, that's right, push rod. I'm not using pull pulls. I don't understand why people run pull pulls on their rudders. Rudder isn't going anywhere. Why are we using pull pulls? They're such a pain in the ass. So I don't. I'll be running a push rod to the rudder. Still have to run pull pulls to the tail wheel because the tail wheel retracts, and as it retracts, it moves, the control horn moves forward, so the pull pulls allow, you know, slack to happen as it's retracting. But that's really about the only time I can imagine pull pulls to be necessary, unless you're building a World War I plane and that's the scale way of doing it. Yeah. Anyway, I'll get off my sandbox here. Anyway, that's where we're at, man. Both elevators in place. They both go up and down. Perfect timing. Shut up. Alright, I'll try and keep you guys updated a little better than I have been. Until then, later.